Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's a small group today, but that just means lots more conversation. So my name is Madeline Cooper. I'm the Event and Program Delivery Manager at NAWO, the National Association of Women in Operations. Thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about our Inclusion Habits for Operations Leaders program. We'll talk about what participants actually experience when they do the program and what the evidence tells us it delivers. If you have any questions as we go on, feel free to drop them in the chat, and there's time at the end as well to ask any questions. Before we get started, of course, we will start with an acknowledgement of country. So I'm joining today from Bunurong country in southeast Naarm or Melbourne. And I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. With Reconciliation Week starting today, tomorrow, it's a wonderful time to really recommit ourselves to the never-ending task of reconciliation and closing the gap. So let's dive in straight away. Let's talk about why this program exists and why we at NAWO started development of this program several years ago. Operational industries have some of the most persistent gender imbalance of any sector in Australia. Our members know that, and many of them are doing the right things at a structural level: policies, targets, reporting, all of those things. But the day-to-day experience of people on the ground and on the front line often tells a different story. Inclusion isn't just a policy on a piece of paper. It's a practice that has to be practiced day after day, and it has to be built at the team level by the leaders who are closest to the work. That's the gap this program was designed to fill. Not a generic leadership course, but a program built specifically for frontline and operational leaders with scenarios and language drawn directly from their world. What we've seen working with member organisations across operational industries is that inclusive leadership is often the missing piece. Organisations can have the right policies, the right targets, the right intentions, and still see women leave or not join an organisation from the beginning. Because if the day-to-day experience of being on that team doesn't feel inclusive, no structural fix will retain those women in the organisations. The companies that invest in building this capability at the frontline leader level, the people closest to the work, are the ones that start to see real sustained change, not just in their diversity numbers and targets, but in engagement, psychological safety, and the kind of culture where people actually want to stay. So let's get into what the program actually is. Runs over 10 weeks, and it is fully online, accessible by phone or computer. We recognise that frontline operational staff are not at their desks all day and might not even have access to a computer or a desk. So all of the learning can be done online. The learning is built around the 6 habits of inclusive leadership, and the program has 3 components: learn, discuss, and experiment. So with Learn, each weekday, participants spend 10 to 15 minutes working through short lessons in an app, videos and quick activities designed to be done on a phone on the go. People can even listen into the content when they're commuting to or from work. There's 7 modules in total: a opening, getting started module, and then a module for each of the 6 habits. We cover topics like bias, the difference between equality and equity, psychological safety, being more vulnerable and open as a leader, and how inclusion connects to business outcomes. Of course, because we are NAWO, there's a very strong focus on gender equity, but these are inclusive practices that help people be more inclusive to all people. We touch on topics such as age bias, people who might speak English as an additional language, all kinds of types of inclusion. The second component of the program is Discuss. So there are 2 live webinars across the program, the welcome and graduation ones to bookend each end of the 10-week program. And then we have fortnightly check-in sessions in between. And those check-in sessions are loosely facilitated opportunities to come together and discuss the content, what people have been thinking about it, what's come up, and their experiences so far. Our participants are also placed in small groups, each led by an inclusion coach. These coaches are past participants or senior leaders who are passionate about inclusion. They're definitely not experts, but that's by design. These are people willing to be on the learning journey alongside their group. They connect with their groups weekly throughout the program via email, and we also have a dedicated online space for the groups. Last year, we did that on Microsoft Teams. This year, that will be within the app, so everything is in the one spot. And then the final big component is experiment, and this is what makes this program different. I think we have all had the experience of doing a professional development program where you go, you sit in a room for 2 days, or you click through the things in an online learning platform. You get the content, and then 2 days later, it's gone completely out of your head and you've made no changes to your day-to-day, how you do your work. In this program, participants don't just learn, it is a requirement that they try things. We require all participants to log at least 5 experiments, is what we call, over the 10 weeks. Small practical actions that they test in their own workplace, reflect on, and then let us know how it went. These aren't extras on top of their existing work. It's experiments embedded into what they're already doing. The program asks leaders to look at how they're relating to their team, how they're communicating, things like that, and approach it differently. And the reflection piece is really important. We emphasize really clearly throughout the program that this is a space to try, to fail. That sometimes happens. And then to see what comes out of that, what you've learned and what you can apply differently next time. And what we've seen time and time again is the experiments are where the real shifts happen. That's where we see the outcomes that we really love to see. So in terms of the program impact and what we've been seeing, something worth knowing about this program is that it's been independently evaluated, which is not many programs in the inclusion and leadership space can say that, particularly for operational industries. In 2024, Behaviour Works Australia, which is the Applied Behavioural Science Research Centre at Monash University, conducted a rigorous external evaluation of the entire program. We received funding from Social Ventures Australia to support this evaluation, and they used a really rigorous mixed method approach. Surveys with the participants and their direct reports. They did one-on-one interviews, and they did data analysis of the experiments participants conducted throughout the program. What they found in this evaluation was that the clearest outcomes were improvements in knowledge and awareness, backed up by interview evidence of real behaviour change. Managers reported communicating with more intent, actively listening differently, supporting their staff to step up and make decisions, and in some cases challenging bias in workplace processes and hiring practices in ways they hadn't done before. We've also seen really strong results in our cohort level reporting. Dulux Group has had what we call an intact cohort in the program the last 2 years. And in our 2024 cohort, for example, by the end of the program, 93% of participants reported a strong or very strong understanding of the link between inclusion and business outcomes, up from just 24% at the start. And 100% agreed or strongly agreed that their workplace would support them speaking up about inclusion, up from 71%. And that Dulux Group cohort example is really strong in that they had that buy-in from executive level throughout down to these frontline leaders who participated. And that's where we start to see some really significant, meaningful changes with the groups that come through our program. And that shift from knowing that inclusion matters academically to feeling genuinely confident to act on it in your day-to-day work is what this program is designed to build. Let me walk you through some examples from the program to kind of bring this to life a bit more. I think the one that is definitely the biggest headline and an incredible illustration of why focusing on inclusion definitely leads to stronger business outcomes is a $250,000 savings that one participant secured. So one participant from last year's open cohort, who was a leader in a manufacturing business, took what he was learning in the program and changed how he connected with and communicated with his frontline operations staff. He focused on really genuinely drawing out their expertise and creating the conditions for them to be more open with them, creating that psychosocial safety, which we all know is incredibly important now. His team responded very positively. They felt heard and valued in a way that they hadn't before. And with those changes, his frontline staff identified a small change to the production line that reduced wastage, saving the business $250,000 a year. This was a change that they had not felt safe, comfortable, or even possible to raise previously, but the small changes that this leader implemented due to participating in the program made them feel like their suggestions would be heard and acted upon. That saving didn't come from a strategy session or a consultant's report or a big review. It came from a leader who learned to listen and act differently from the program. Across last year's open cohort, one of the most common experiments we saw was leaders changing how they ran meetings, which sounds really simple, but the impacts we were hearing were really large. What they were doing were relatively simple things, you would think: sending agendas in advance, using silent starts, so giving people 10 minutes to write ideas down before anyone speaks, popcorn rounds where everyone shares once before open discussion begins. And what they found was that the quieter people in the room, particularly offshore team members and those who were more introverted, started contributing in ways they hadn't before. Meetings became more focused. Leaders started hearing ideas they would never have heard otherwise, and that they felt comfortable and had the framework and ideas on how to make these changes in a way that was sustainable and worked in a way for their own teams. Final example I'll share is the Trusted 10 example. So one of the most confronting moments in the program for many leaders is an exercise called the Trusted 10. And we've got a short video from one of our inclusion coaches from last year, Jean Stewart, who's going to talk about her experience in the program and her experience with the Trusted 10 exercise.
The program is unique because the wider cohort is built from many different members of the NAWO organisation. So you have the ability to reflect and digest the learning with those from different industries, different backgrounds. The learning isn't heavily theory-based. In fact, some of the learnings are cartoon or comic. So you've got your online learning that you do individually, you talk together as a community, and then you've also got your inclusion coach to talk more deeply in maybe a safer place. And we may think that we're actually being very inclusive, but one of the activities that I found that really spotlighted some biases was the Trusted 10, and it was a chance to sit down and write down on a piece of paper 10 people in your close circle who you would normally lean on. It actually really highlights a blind spot and the unconscious bias of our own tendencies to lean on those who are very similar to us.
I really loved that example from Jean. Because what strikes me most working with participants in this program is how often the shift starts with something uncomfortable, and we really encourage people to sit and think about that discomfort. Leaders come in thinking they're already pretty inclusive, and then an experiment or an exercise or a piece of content in the app that day shows them something they didn't expect. Maybe they realize they've been consistently going to the small group of people when they need input, or they've had a conversation with someone they've barely spoken to before and discover a whole set of strengths and perspectives they had no idea were there. Those moments aren't just interesting, they're the ones that change how someone leads and have enormous ripple effects throughout an organisation. Because when you multiply that across a team, it changes what that team feels like to be a part of and what that team can accomplish. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of what the program involves. We run this program in two different ways. So each year we run an open cohort, which is open to anyone, whether they're a NAWO member or a non-member. And so one of the benefits of that program, as Jean mentioned in the video, is that you are in a group with people from multiple industries, multiple companies. And so there's that opportunity to learn what other people are doing and to build a cohort like that. So our open cohort this year starts on the 27th of July. As I said before, it's fully online, 10 to 20 minutes of daily learning on your phone. The total time commitment across the program is approximately 15 to 20 hours. And the experiments, as I mentioned before, but just really important to emphasize, are built into existing work. It's not an add-on on top of it or additional work. We really want to encourage people to be making small, sustainable, impactful changes to the work they're already doing. We've got the pricing up there. So there is a significant discount for employees of NAWO member companies. If you are not currently an employee at a NAWO member company, there is also obviously the opportunity to purchase an individual membership to NAWO, which means that you will have the benefits of a NAWO membership, not just for the 10 weeks of the program, but for an entire year. If you're registering 3 or more people from the same organisation, you'll also save $100 per person. And we can separately invoice for those kinds of things as well. We also offer what we call intact team delivery, which is what we've done for the Dulux group the last couple of years. That's if you prefer to run the program for your own organisation on a schedule that suits you. We love doing intact teams, and we can talk through the details and the options for you. Just get in touch with us on events at nawo.org.au. So that's the spiel. If you're ready to register or have a closer look before you do, my colleague Annalisa will drop the link in the chat and we will share some more information via email. Registrations are open now for the July cohort. And as I said, if you're thinking about bringing a group for your organisation, reach out to us directly and we can talk through what that looks like. We are incredibly proud of this program, and sitting in the sessions each week when the program is running is always the highlight of my week, seeing those small shifts in participants and then by the end seeing really energized, clued up leaders ready to go out and make those sustainable changes in how their teams run is really inspiring. Thank you so much to those of you who joined us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to speak up now, drop in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we can go on with our day. Any questions? No. All right, I will stop the recording. Thank you so much, and hope to see more participants.